guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Thank you all very much for being here. To my left are my colleagues, Dr. Fair and Mr. Hinojosa, who decided to put on this new event for us. I look forward to this year and hopefully next year. As a site on the flyers, this is Constitution Day, and we're going to be decoding the Bill of Rights. I just hope it's a check we can cash. Now, those of you who had in class, you know that I like some participation. I like you guys to talk. I like to be interactive. So let's make sure we do a lot of that today. As we get started, I want to ask you guys a question. Y'all know who this guy is?
Sheldon from Big Bang Theory.
He's from Texas, yeah. What did you say about that?
Sheldon from Big Bang Theory.
Sheldon, yes. Officially, because we're in academia, we have to give full names. Dr. Sheldon Lee Cooper. Who's his best friend, ex-roommate, and tormentee by chance? That other guy, yeah, that's a good one. His name, he actually has a name. Dr. Leonard Leakey Hofstadter. Now, anybody remember from the show what bound them together by chance? Any takers? Any takers? Now, if in your head you thought the roommate agreement, you'd be correct. On the TV show, they actually have a flag for the apartment. It's an amazing thing to go back and consider. Now, as part of what we're doing here, I'm trying to provide a little bit of background information, but the roommate agreement and constitutions are the same. They are the system of fundamental laws and principles that prescribes the nature, functions, and limits of a government. The difference here being the roommate agreement covers what goes on in the apartment, whereas the U.S. Constitution covers what goes on within our country's borders, and sometimes beyond that, but that's a story for a different day. Now, regarding what constitutions do, here we have a wonderful woman christening a ship. Looks like she plays softball, looks like a pretty good swing there amongst other things. For us, constitutions will do three things. Number one is establish governing institutions. We have to create the government system that we have here before us. Specifically, our first created institution, per Article 1, Section 1, Clause 1, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, a Senate and House of Representatives. In case you're wondering why they're called that, we wrote it down. Now, regarding what they do, number two, here we have a captain speaking to vassally. What word comes to mind with you guys regarding what the captain's giving here? Any takers? Start thinking about coach telling you what to do. It's a command. It's an order. For us, we have to assign governing institutions powers. We created the Congress. What does the Congress do? Now, for one power of Congress is Congress has the power to provide for the common defense and the general welfare of the United States. In case you're wondering, these are the 6 different quote-unquote branches of the military, the newest being Space Force. That's kind of my favorite. That's just me. Now, regarding what the Congress can and cannot do, there's a lovely, lovely laundry list of different things. Declare war, raise and support armies, provide and maintain a navy. My personal one is the last two regarding the militia. That's kind of one of the things we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. And last but not least, for those of you that own a home, what are we looking at here? Circuit breaker. If your wife blow drying her hair uses too much power, what's going to happen to the breaker? It's going to trip. It's going to cut it off. Thus far, we've created a government institution. We've assigned them power. But now we have to place limits on said power. Regarding the military, we have the Third Amendment. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. When are we at war? When are we not at war? Who is a soldier? What is a soldier? Now, over here is a funny little cartoon, Amendment number 3 in a nutshell. Brett exercises his Third Amendment rights. No, you can't crash on my couch and get that tank out of my front yard. I don't know about you, but I would kind of enjoy a tank being in my front yard. Be it mine, be it somebody else's. I just kind of want to see how big they are, because I don't think I've ever actually seen a tank in person. But that's a story for a different day. Now, regarding why we have the Third Amendment, that's because of something called the Quartering Act of 1765. The Crown, regarding the colonies, told the colonists, you have to feed and you have to shelter British troops here in the colonies. Now, that brings us up to a question I kind of alluded on earlier. Who is a soldier? Look at the news, you go around the world, could be somebody extremely young, incredibly old, in uniform, or out of uniform. For us, there's the definition. Soldiers are a person who serves in an army. This could be somebody who's overseas on active duty, someone a little bit closer to home in the National Guard or the Reserve, and most importantly for you guys that are civilians, there's actually something called the auxiliary. I tried to join the Coast Guard Auxiliary when I lived down in Kingsville, but I didn't get approved, so it's a thing. I could have flown around in an airplane doing search and rescue if something happened. I would love to do that, but they say that. Diabetes sucks, but it's a story for a different day. Now, this is politics, this is the Constitution, this is government. Politically, a soldier could be somebody who rents. Rents an apartment, rents a building, rents a room, rents space in someone's head. That's kind of a political way to say things here nowadays. Now, but why do we call them a political soldier? There's actually a lot of studies done taking a look at home ownership and political affiliation. Owning a home makes you more likely to vote. Hall and Yoder, 2019. But renters are more likely to vote Democrat, and homeowners are more likely to vote Republican. Salviati, 2018. Start thinking about those divides here in society. Now, giving another definition, renters are one that pays rent for the use of another's property, aka a tenant. Now, in 2019, there were 44.1 million renter households. That's a huge chunk of people, considering half of those probably have 2 people living in it. You're looking at nearly 80 to 100 million people, depending on how you want to go back and do the math. Now, some renting protocol. If you've never rented anything before, you want to stay, you have to pay. You don't pay, things are going to happen. Now, depending on what state you're in, renting legislation varies by friendliness. The darker the color, the more landlord-friendly the state is. The lighter the color, the more renter-friendly the legislation is. Just kind of knowing some general things. For the most part, the majority of the states on here that are darker, outside of Illinois, Ohio, and New York, these are a lot of more traditional Democrat states. Whereas over here, the more darker ones, particularly in the South, are traditionally your more Republican states. Now, thanks to COVID, nobody got one of these for over a year. Nobody could be evicted. Nobody could be kicked out of their house. Democrats today pretty much are the ones wanting to go back and further extend these. Here's the problem. Landlords must pay to maintain the property. Landlords must pay property taxes. If a landlord can't collect rent, then they can't pay for things themselves. Because in many ways, even if you own your own property, you don't pay property taxes, you don't truly own your own home. Therefore, if the owner can't pay, they themselves can be evicted. Not by a mortgage lender in this case, but by the government, because you didn't pay taxes, they foreclose on your home. And if you don't pay, they will literally stand on the front steps of the county courthouse and auction your house. Who wants it, people? Who wants it? Now, therefore, guys, the Third Amendment has been violated. Federal government, local governments are requiring you to house soldiers in your home. You can't kick them out, they're stuck there. Now, so the Supreme Court has weighed in on August 26th. The federal eviction moratorium was overturned 6-3, pretty much along partisan lines. There's actually a list of local moratoriums you can go back and take a look at, where city versus county versus state, in some cases, you could or could not be evicted. Now, regarding the situation, the federal government has made a response. That comes in the term of the Fifth Amendment. It says, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Over here, you have the federal government under the CARES Act offering money to people to pay their back rent because they couldn't work and they couldn't earn any money to pay their debts. Now, one of the things that my colleagues are going to talk on a little bit later is something called selective incorporation. The way the Constitution reads, it only applies to that of the First Amendment, it only applies to that of the federal government. We had to have several court cases to apply the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to that of the states. Now, I know I kind of talked a lot, kind of fast, but what questions you guys have for me? What do you want to discuss first? What you got there, Ralph?
Oh, it's just a lot of questions about how, I guess, the younger students in here, and how you're interpreting, or not necessarily interpreting, but
Interpret, that's the right word. There's a loose interpretation, a strict interpretation, letter of the law, spirit of the law.
Right. And I think that's what, these Supreme Justices end up doing, when they make a decision on
They have to.
yeah, exactly.
They have to.
Exactly.
What is it? What is
Like
it
I
not?
said, and there was a split, we talked about 6-3,
The three liberal justices, Kagan, Sotomayor, Breyer, all voted against overturning it. The six conservatives said, no, it's out.
Exactly. And I think when you hear these things, and unless you're in that situation, it's just like me as being a student. The college, back to what you're saying, we have rules and policies.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone may interpret those rules and policies differently.
I've been to those hearings.
Yes, and we have discipline hearings that some people may say, well, why can't you do this or why can't you do that? And I guess that's why when we talk about the Constitution, they're saying, well, why, and they talk about amending the Constitution. Why can't we put amendments in there to change, again, what was the spirit?
It's the way you interpret it.
Exactly.
The Article 1, Section 8, necessary and proper clause.
Yes,
The government can do whatever is necessary and proper.
Yes.
The question is, what's necessary? What's proper?
Exactly. And I think right now, because when I was in college, maybe I felt like, even though it didn't feel like the Constitution really applied to me, but it does in everything I do. As you get older, and like you're saying, once you buy property, once you own a home, once you start paying taxes, then you seem like you pay more attention.
That's a four-letter word, man. Taxes.
You
Don't
start,
say that
you
again.
start, you start paying attention to what everyone is saying. Right now, what you're hearing a lot of is, why are the rich not being taxed more? So those because it seems like those who are on the lower,
They're not getting taxed.
exactly, are not
They
getting
have
taxed.
the standard deduction and
Exactly.
they're paying nothing.
Exactly. So it's those that are in the middle, which I'm assuming a lot of these people, your parents are in the middle, and your parents are having to pay taxes. And some of you may qualify for Pell, some of you may not qualify for Pell. But again, back to, is it fair?
What's fair?
Exactly. What is fair? Exactly. Then you've got equality, and you've got versus inequality, and then you've got, what is it? Do we have to make it fair for everybody, or do we have to make it equal for everyone? And I think that's the what's always going on. Should the Constitution be fair and equal to all, or does it give advantage to either social status people or to those of a lower social status, even though it's supposed to be equal to all?
What do y'all think a soldier should be?
What way?
Just in general,
What they are now.
what they are now. You take a look at counterculture groups, prior elections, the Black Panther Party, they've been stationed outside of polling stations. Should they fall under soldier? Wear a uniform? What's a uniform? That's a bit of a rabbit hole, but it's fun.
I think they would be considered more of martyrs,
Or martyr, yeah.
not necessarily soldiers. I mean, sure, they're fighting for a cause or they're trying to help a cause, which I guess that's what a soldier is. So, kind of contradicting myself there.
That's politics. That's government. If you say potato, I say potato. He says turkey. Turkey bacon.
Yes.
Good. I landed down. I was trying to turn a turkey bacon joke into that.
I mean, but if you ask somebody, give me your definition of an army, and then for us that live in the United States, we say, well, you have to be in one of those 6 branches,
You take a look at politically Bernie Sanders. We're going to start a revolution. Okay. What does that mean?
But then you think about, is it somebody who's a part of a group, have a specific mission? Do they have a specific vision? Do they have a specific? Because then you start looking at these gangs, whether it's the Crips, the Bloods, M13s, all these different gangs that are out there. Could they be considered?
How do you mobilize them?
Right. Are they considered to be a form of an army or a militia or?
A lot of crazy stuff out there, guys. Anything else for me? Now, speaking of how we define things, who's going to go next? Well, guys, let's give a round of applause.